Okay, today on the show we have Talbot Sutter from Sutter and Nugent in Palm Beach, Florida. Let me tell you about Talbot. Talbot is a lifelong resident of Palm Beach Gardens and a third-generation Palm Beach County, Florida native. Upon graduating from FSU, Florida State University, Talbot moved back to his hometown in Palm Beach Gardens and began his real estate career. In fact, he was fully committed to a career in real estate before he graduated Florida State. He secured his real estate license well before he completed his education. I did not do anything like that in college, so I applaud anyone that had that foresight. But in January of 2014, Talbot formed Sutter and Nugent Real Estate, a full-service, upscale, residential, and commercial real estate company to better serve his customers and to provide a level of personal service rarely found in the industry. The company specializes in working with sellers and buyers in the Palm Beaches and throughout Florida, and they have 4 offices and are currently opening a 5th office next month in Boca Raton. So please visit sutterandnugent.com. That's SUTTERAND, Nugent, NUGENT.com. Also, please follow them on Facebook, Sutter and Nugent, and on Instagram, which is Sutter and Nugent INC. Talbot, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Excited to be here.
We are really excited. I'm saying this out loud so that either one of the two of us remembers. Before we finish, I want to, you'd sent us a story that I never get to these stories when I ask people for their most unusual real estate experience. You have an amazing one about a home that was sold where you never ended up meeting the customer. So I definitely want to, before we end, we have to go through that. But,
right.
But first, before we get to the end, let's start at the beginning. I would love to, and our listeners would love to know, you really have specialized your company in the luxury space. That is your bread and butter. You're a young guy in the industry. You've done incredible things. But can you sort of start us at the beginning? Like, how'd you get started? I know you got your license in college, but how did you end up start building your business?
Yeah. So we originally I got into it, probably, sometime in high school. And as far as I can remember, even before high school, middle school, the only conversation we would have at dinner would be, some issue my mom was having with a HUD statement or, buyer or financing that. In my mind, I'm 15, 12 years old trying to figure out what's a HUD statement, what is she talking about? And so almost by osmosis, I've kind of been, saturated into the real estate business. But when I turned 18, I got a huge pressure and push from my dad to get my license. Because at that time I was helping my mom with open houses, tagging along with her on showings and, opening doors for her. And I was, basically selling property. My dad's like, listen, you really need to get a license. And
let's make this legal.
Yeah, let's make this legal here. So get your license. So 18 got my license, and kind of the rest was history. Originally I wasn't going to go to school, but, I'd obviously gone to, all the way through high school and had a big push to go to college. So I did that and did rentals through college, kind of put myself through Florida State.
Wow. So you were working as a leasing agent. Were you doing mostly college leasing?
Yeah, mostly students, and kind of got a good following from parents from back in Palm Beach County, Boca, Delray Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, bringing their kids up here. And then when I graduated, those were my first calls, and I got back home and I tried to get into the business, and I'm calling all the parents that I rented houses to their kids to.
Well, and they were probably the ones footing the bills anyway, so you were probably dealing with them while you were leasing to their sons and daughters. Oh, wow, that's so smart.
So yeah, all proof of funds and everything were coming from the parents anyway. So we knew which ones to target first as soon as we got back.
So as soon as you got back, you're like, hey, by the way, I'm a fully fledged realtor. I can help you buy and sell and invest. And oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah. It was, when we came back, it was probably 2000 and I want to say 10 or 11. And so the market was pretty depressed then. There wasn't a lot of people buying and selling. And now
that's a tough time to get in.
Yeah, exactly. And and that was kind of another blessing, is that we got in at a time to every year since 2010, it's been a little bit better and better and better of a market. So it's helped us out a lot.
Yeah. And so aside from working with the parents of the students you helped before, and I'm sure as Florida has, I think you might have the most number of real estate agents in all of the country. Maybe California is higher, but it's between the two.
Yeah.
A lot of people have their license, and a lot of people never really make a great career in real estate. So I'd love to get your thoughts on why you think you've become successful, maybe what you tell your agents at your own firm. What advice do you have for agents who are starting out or just who are looking to get to that next level?
Okay, yeah. I mean, we, with our agents, especially if we bring on a new agent, the biggest thing we harp on is you have to treat this business as a full-time job.
Yeah.
I'm sure any experienced real estate agent will agree with that. Is basically, wake up before the sun comes up too. That's my other rules. You have to be up before the sun comes up to get, yourself proper, in the proper mindset for the day. Dress professionally as soon as you wake up, get into the office. If you have nothing to do, I don't care, come into the office and start either listening to other people that are experienced, getting, soaking in information, or start planning out your day. And if you don't have any appointments or any sellers to contact, then you're prospecting. And by prospecting, you're hitting your sphere of influence. That's everybody says hit the sphere of influence.
Yes.
But then the next thing is once you burn that out in about a week is try to figure out who's the most likely person or company that's going to put you close with a buyer or seller, whether it's a builder, a restaurant, tier, anybody that's going to have employees working for them. And if you can involve it in a construction aspect or a building aspect where people are going to be creating homes or developments, getting in with those people by and initially, we were cold calling. That's how we started. We started up by cold calling all the builders back in 2010 and trying to get in with a couple of them. But, when nobody else was building, there might have been 3 builders back then starting, and we got in with one of them. And that was kind of our leg in with new construction. But there's so many different ways. But I would say for a new agent or somebody looking to get to that next level, planning out your day and doing it every day consistently is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I struggle with that too. I'm not a practicing realtor myself. I have a license. I don't use it, but I recruit realtors. But even throughout my day, I have people that make appointments for me. But if I don't plan out my day, if I don't structure it and saying, okay, between this time and this time, I mean, I have appointments scheduled, but what do I do in between those appointments, right? And a lot of times I might only have 30 minutes in between an appointment, but I really haven't thought it through. And I'm like, oh, now I'm scrambling to find something. And as a result, I'm a lot less effective. I'm a lot less efficient. So time blocking, I could not agree more. So critical.
Very, very critical. And I think, having somebody that you can come into the office as a new agent, or maybe an agent that's doing 3 or 4 million and you're trying to get to the 10 or 12 million, having somebody that you can go in and watch and, even if you're not shadowing them, but mirroring them and try to, emulate your business on how they're doing it will help you get to that next level.
Yeah, I was watching. I agree. And I was watching a promotional video you had made for your company. And one of the things that was said by one of your agents, which I thought was so interesting, and I haven't really heard it much in other videos from other firms that I've seen across the country or here in Chicago, which is that you said, hey, look, classroom learning is great. There's definitely a place for that. We certainly offer that. But we really want people out and about. Like, we want to show you how to actually get out of the office. Obviously you're in the office to learn and to prospect, but we want to also take you out and show you how to actually grow this business. And I'm sure with so much competition, there's so many realtors in your area, you guys have shined. And that has got to be your bread and butter. Is we know how to do this. We want to take you around and show you actually how to do, like shadowing, mentoring, how to do a listing presentation, how to meet with a first-time buyer, all of those things.
We like action, and that was one of the things that drove me, absolutely crazy. Was when I was at, when I graduated college, I came back and worked at a very large firm. It was one of the largest firms in South Florida, and I was in the corporate aspect of it and seeing how they would train these new agents, and the people training the agents, were people that had not succeeded in real estate. So they, settled with, a training position.
Yeah.
And then 2, they would scold the people if they had missed a class, and the people that were missing classes were out getting listings and doing business and writing contracts. But then they were scolding them, for not coming to the class of learning how to write a contract. So we, at that point I said, I love, we have attorneys come in and teach all the time and do all that. You got to know the rules. You got to know how to write a contract, but the things that you can't teach and that, you wish you could easily teach overnight is taking the initiative and going out and getting business. And that's,
Yeah.
that drive and that fire in somebody is what makes a really, really good agent and takes you to that next level.
Yeah, I have a little tip. You actually just sparked a memory I had back when I was in the corporate world. Actually, I worked for a mid-size, actually a smaller tech firm, and we had, I don't know, 150 employees or so. And I was, you were just mentioned one thing that was really important. This is what sparked the memory. Is you said you need to get in front of people who maybe it's not your sphere of influence because you've burned through that list already, but now these are people that could get you in front of other prospective buyers, sellers, renters, investors. And I was thinking about this. So I used to work at this tech firm, and we had an HR director. And once in a while, somebody must cold called her and said, hey, we're Aflac, or we want to come in and do a presentation for supplemental insurance, whatever it was. There was constantly these things going on. And I ended up leaving that firm. I came over here and I started helping our agents with some of these marketing ideas. And I said, everybody works somewhere. And if you contact them, especially like at the firm I was at with the tech firm, it was people in their late 20s mostly. These are mostly renters. But they were all well-compensated people. So these are people that are going to be buying a property very shortly in the next few years. And like you were saying, how you helped the people that you knew in college, help them, then you were able to come back and work with their families when right. And that's the same sort of thing. So for everyone listening, going through your sphere of influence, you'll find who's ready to buy, who's ready to sell. And then most people just aren't going to be in that position. But you could say, hey, where do you work? Can I somehow come in and bring lunch and do a little seminar on first-time home buyers, or I can help people with renting, or, it's just a great opportunity to get in front. So I apologize for taking over there, but you sparked that memory.
Yeah. It's 100% right, what you just said.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit too about, you've started a firm. So tell us that process. Like you were at a large, one of the largest South Florida firms, and you decided to go off on your own. So talk a little bit about that.
So we, the firm that I was at, I loved, something happened with one of the owners there, the owner actually passed away. I loved him to death. And at that point in time, I kind of used that to transition. So we started that. It was myself, one other person, and my father kind of doing the behind the scenes paperwork and leasing paperwork and all that stuff. So we started with that and kind of slowly built momentum, with the market, with, using knowledge. And we kind of, at the time, prided ourselves on being the most, the youngest, most tech savvy people in the business. And with that mindset, and with, at the first time, we were the first people to use drones. When we used to hire helicopters, would have to spend $1,000 to get aerials. We, we're the first ones to have drones. We were doing drone shots for all of our properties. But that coupled with, the internet, we were huge on doing online advertising. And then as social media developed, like now one of our biggest things is doing targeted ads on Instagram and Facebook and getting in front of the people. Instead of going out to a group of 1 million people, you're going out to 1,000 people that are more qualified to buy that $1 million home. But using that technology, using that savviness and that momentum to bring on other kind of like-minded individuals that all had the same goals, in mind. We weren't, it wasn't every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming on board. It was people that wanted to be kind of part of a movement and part of a growth period. And with that, we have about 155 agents, and we're putting in the 5th office in Boca. So
that's incredible.
It's worked out well. And a lot of it's been timing too. It hasn't just been all of us, but the market timing and property values going up and, the tax incentives for Florida, all that's helped us out a lot.
Yeah. I went to Inman does a independent broker yearly meeting. They did it online this year because of the pandemic. But a couple of years ago, I was in New York and I went and saw it. And they had an agent from San Francisco. And he was one of the most successful agents in the country. And so one of the questions asked to him, because you work in the luxury market, as did he, is they said, well, what's different about marketing a luxury property? And I'm not a practicing realtor, so I really didn't know what the differences were other than, obviously wonderful photography and you have to know the property and the drone shots and virtual tours and all of that. But in addition to that, he was like, oh, wow, we just, we go way beyond in marketing. And I imagine, is that the same sort of a thing in Palm Beach where there's lots of affluent clients? You guys play in that space. Do you have to really step up your marketing game when you have listings?
You do. You got to step up the marketing game. You got to step up, your personal game, and you have to really, in luxury property, I tell, our agents and tell people that want to do it is it's more of, everybody has the MLS tools, pretty much if
Right.
it's a decent brokerage, they all, have the website tools and all that stuff, but you
Sure.
have to be able to sell the lifestyle,
Right.
and be able to really treat that person with, a white glove service to where, you know, anybody can send in properties, but not everybody's going to go pick them up in their car and have waters waiting for them in the car, have everything set up throughout the day, have lunch planned, have know the chef at the restaurant that's going to come out and greet him and say, hey, how are you guys, welcome, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and make him feel at home, and give them that personal touch, that we kind of tell our agents and train our agents to do if they're dealing in that category of business. But it's marketing at that level is you're going to spend a lot of money, and you can
Sure.
get burnt on the listings. You can get seller can decide not to sell, and all of a sudden you're out 15 $16,000 on marketing one listing that
Sure.
you're waiting on. So that's another thing we tell our people is don't put all your eggs in one basket, because
Sure.
no matter what, they're all not going to close. So you
Right.
gotta be careful on how you do that.
Yeah, I agree, and but it is really interesting, and I know you have so many agents, so you guys have grown to a pretty sizable number, and I'm somebody who recruits agents, so I know how difficult that is. So you must be doing a lot of things right to attract all these agents to come work at your firm, and also the expansion that you've had is incredible. I don't know that I've ever talked to anyone that's expanded to 5 offices in, let's say, 10 years. That's an incredible growth up to 150 plus agents. I spend 8 hours a day recruiting, so I know exactly how difficult that is. And
Right.
and also you're running your own business. You're running your agents' businesses. You're training. You're coaching. Why do you think agents have become so attracted to your firm?
I think one of the biggest things that we ask people too when they call us up and they want to come in for an interview and talk to us, because we haven't really done a lot of recruiting. It's mainly
Yeah,
been
you
word of
haven't
mouth
needed to.
people,
Yeah,
and we ask them, so what, why are you calling us? What's why are you in here today? What has sparked your interest? And some of the things that have kind of come together that seems to be the common thing that they say is that we've heard about this really contagious energy that you guys have in the office. So and it's not just young agents with us. We have older agents and every different type of agent, but everybody that's with us has a super energetic mindset. Everybody wants to come in and learn. They're always bringing in ideas, different for sale by owner programs or pitches or expired
sure.
listing pitches, and we're always switching it up too. So I think the office atmosphere is really, really neat. I'm in the Wells Fargo Palm Beach Gardens office right now, and there's probably 2 other people in here right now, but you might go into the Delray Beach office and there's, 10 people in there, they're calling, they're,
Yeah.
all chatting, bouncing ideas off each other. So I think that coupled with people that have come on board who had no experience in real estate, and then all of a sudden now they're making, $300,000-$400,000 a year, being a super, mega agent in South Florida, and them having that on their social media and people seeing that, I think, makes other people want to get in the business. But it's, a combination of 1,000 different factors.
No, you're right, but you're obviously doing so many things right. I actually, you said something that I don't think anyone has talked about on our show. We've done almost 200 episodes now, but I wanted just to drill down on something, because you mentioned expired and Fizzbuzz. So a lot of our listeners have certainly heard from other agents, should I buy expired and Fizzbuzz leads, for sale by owner leads, and should I be calling them? And boy, there is a variety of opinions about how successful one can be with those. There's some people that say they're the hardest phone calls to make because you're going to get hung up on. People are going to yell at you. And then there's other people that go, boy, I've got so many listings, and as a result of that, I don't know what it's like down in South Florida right now for sale by owners and expireds, but is that a viable strategy still? Where
It,
are agents
it
having
is.
success with that?
It is, and it's the way I've kind of, and everybody's got their own opinion on it, but
Sure.
when people come on board with us, we try to get them to specialize in a specific area. And that's another thing that's
Yeah.
kind of helped us get, to
Smart.
those next level listings. So they become an expert, in that area. So we tell those people in those areas, we don't have territories, but we have kind of, known territories of people that work certain areas. And absolutely, if you're an expert in that area, I would be calling every single Fizzbuzz, every single expired,
For sure.
every single morning. That's kind of what we do in the mornings. We come in 7:30, 7:45 and look at that list to see if something's popped up. But to So if somebody came in and said, I want to call every Fizzbuzz in Palm Beach County, I mean, unless they're really an expert in all of Palm Beach County, you know, every single neighborhood.
Well, yeah, they won't be able to really to do much for those clients unless
Right.
they are an expert, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you can talk, say, you know, Susie down the street that just sold her house, or that house that sold off market next to that specific Fizzbuzz in your specific market area, you can talk more, you know, educatedly about it, and they trust you more. They know that you're not just reading off a script, you know, calling everybody in the handbook.
Right.
So I think in specific areas that you're trying to, you know, dominate or go after, then absolutely 100% expireds and Fizzbuzz.
It's so refreshing to hear that, because the vast majority of agents, non-top producing agents, will say, oh, it doesn't work. Because to be fair, most people don't want to cold call. Most salespeople don't want to cold call. We have,
Right.
phone call reluctance, or I forget what the term is. But if you can, you know, if you can get to a point where you can pick up the phone and start dialing, boy, that is a great skill to have.
It is. And it's like, I mean, you said it perfectly. It's not, nobody likes to do it. It's not
Right.
fun. You know,
Right.
people, you know, answer and tell you to, you know, F off, go screw yourself. I never want to talk to you again.
Right.
You know, how to bounce back from that. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but usually in this business, when you're doing things that are uncomfortable and out of your comfort zone, that's how you get to the next level. And that's how you get that client or that listing that you would have never had a chance of getting.
Well, I don't want to work out either, right? But it's a good
Right.
idea.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do push-ups. I don't want to diet. But I do want energy, and I want to live a long life. And so if we're thinking about our real estate career, what are those daily disciplines? And if you can force yourself to not only make those calls, because really anybody can make those calls, and many other agents are making those calls, but if you can bring something new to the table where you're actually an expert in that area, or you have something in common with that seller, you know, oh, hey, down the road I helped so-and-so, you know, sell their
Right.
property. Boy, that really helps a lot.
Right. Goes the extra mile.
I would love to hear, you sent us a couple of really fun stories that I'd love to get into, because I never get into these, but I would love to hear the story. This is a funny story about, there was a waterfront property and you had just bought a new boat and you were showing clients. Do you mind
Right.
sharing that story?
Yeah. So that was, it was probably 3 years ago. I just bought it was my first boat actually. And, you know, I was super pumped about it, trying to, you know, show it off to everybody. One of our clients that was coming down, flying in from New York, wanted to see waterfront property in Jupiter. And I said, absolutely. And actually, I just bought a boat. You know,
Yeah.
why don't we go on the boat? And oh yeah, I want to see the property via the water. That's a great idea. So I try to, you know, space out the listings, you know, as much as I could to, you know, because we're going from waterfront to waterfront.
Right.
Taking a little extra time, but we get on the boat. You know, it was beautiful all week. It was beautiful that morning, and we get on the boat, see the first house, and we're walking out of the back door, and all of a sudden that first, you know, crackle of thunder happens. And I thought for sure the buyer was going to call an Uber and get out of there. And he said, no, let's keep going. And we get in the boat and we're cruising, you know, to the second house, and it just starts downpouring rain. So probably for the next 2.5, 3 hours, you know, we're soaked head to toe. And it's not like an inside boat; it's a sport fish,
Right.
so you get wet.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm you know, dressed up to a T, you know, sweating and getting rain poured on me and looking like a hot mess. And but it worked out. The guy ended up buying a house, and it wasn't from those showings, you know, right away that he bought the house. He came back 2 or 3 times, and we went by car the second and third time. And he,
Sure.
but we shared laughs together, and
Sure.
and it was kind of something I learned after the fact, that the more rapport, the more personable, and the more, you know, that was a very personal experience we shared on the boat. We kind of came together in a moment, and I felt like they, at that point, really, really trusted me. I really trusted them. It kind of brought us to that next level in the relationship, to have them come down a second and third time and buy that $3 million house. So that was a neat experience.
It is. It's such a great story. And it's a good reminder that having a shared experience with your customers, with your clients, even if it's an uncomfortable experience where you're getting rained on in your boat for 2.5 to 3 hours, which of course is that is a difficult experience to go through for the client.
Right.
You feel bad for the client's trying to reassure you because they don't want you to feel bad. But at the end of it, you've just gone through something together, and that actually binds people tighter. And as the perfect example of, So, don't, I always tell our listeners, like, don't be afraid of experiences happening that aren't always positive. So people get locked out, they get caught, locked. I got locked out on a patio with my client story, and I had to yell down to somebody to come up, and we had to wait up there an hour. And, those things, almost all those stories end up with, and then, the client really liked me. And then we ended up,
right. They bought a house.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'd also would love to hear the story about how you sold, and this is really a truly incredible story. You basically sold a $3 million house and the buyer never saw the property, correct?
Right. And the whole time, and a lot of, like, with the whole kind of COVID thing that happened, we, a lot of our stuff went virtual, and we were equipped to handle it. Everything was good. But even, with that, you still meet the client, you still at some point in time see somebody. But this was a listing that we had, and the contract came in, buyer's name, love this house, love your pictures, love the marketing on it. Never met the person, and, had a quick phone call with him. The seller the whole time thought the deal wasn't going through.
Sure, of course.
Thinking, oh, this can't be real. The guy, he hadn't even come and drove by the house. He's out of state. I think it was Connecticut, and never saw the buyer. The buyers never met the seller. It was a cash transaction, and he had to do an application, do a phone interview with the association, closed on the property remotely, and to this day still have not met the guy. And it's years later, and I text him, here and there, and I joke with him, I still haven't met you, and I'll have you over one of these days. And I never even see his car outside the house when we're driving by. So he's kind of a ghost client, but a good client.
Boy, that's
the
funny.
Neat thing with technology,
It is, and I think one of the best thing, and unfortunately our country is struggling right now with the pandemic, and it's a horrible thing we're all dealing with. But maybe one of the things that will help agents is that people are so used to doing Zoom meetings, or on Facebook Live, or there's lots of different platforms now which are virtually free, and agents now can have those first meetings. Obviously, in person is preferred, but right now maybe not always the safest thing to do. So this is a great opportunity, and you don't have to, everyone knows how to get on Zoom now. It's not like you're going to struggle with, even my parents in their 70s use Zoom all the time, so it's like, this is really a great opportunity to really connect with people through social media and through technology that in the past would have been more challenging, I think, because we weren't conditioned to do it.
Right. And the Zoom meetings have made everything way more efficient on our end as far as office meetings. Oh my God. We would have an office meeting. We'd have, 60 people flood into the office, or 50 people come in, and, a whole day would be gone because you're talking to people, and donuts are flying around. It's a mess everywhere. Now with Zoom meetings, we come in for an hour, get everything done with super efficiently, hours done with, and we're on our day. So it's made everything a lot better, in my opinion, Zoom.
Yeah, I agree. And it also, I think, in some ways, it makes everything a bit safer too, especially for agents who are meeting clients who they don't know, and they've never met. And, there's always safety considerations. And Zoom is a great way to have that first meeting when, in the past, maybe people would do it at a coffee shop, which is perfectly fine to do too, but just always trying to think about safety. I think that's one of the other benefits to come out of this is people are going to be, I think, hopefully more safe as a result by, having those face-to-face meetings, getting a better sense of what the client's like, if it is somebody they don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I'd also love to find out exactly, is from a perspective as a business owner, you have 150 plus agents. You've obviously seen some agents really succeed. You've seen other agents, I'm sure, struggle in the industry, no matter what firm they're at. You talked about getting in early, pounding the phones, learning the craft, absorbing it from other agents in the office. It's from a marketing perspective, because a lot of our listeners go, okay, well, how do I get out there and market myself, right? And I know there's no magic bullet answer to this, but is there a suggestion or two that you have for agents that are looking to go, okay, I've exhausted my sphere of influence. What do I do now?
Right. I would say probably the most important thing, for those agents is to really, be yourself. And I know that's kind of sounds corny a little bit, but be yourself, meaning don't try to, we see people come in that don't have any experience in real estate, and all of a sudden they're, so disappointed that they're not getting $1 million listing in the first 3 months or the first 6 months. And I mean, I think I did rentals my first, year and a half. which are, a pain in the butt, but,
Yeah.
you don't just jump into it. Some people can and some people will, but it's not everybody that's going to hop into it that's going to get to that incredible, $5 million listing in a couple of months. So I think be yourself, get in, write down your strengths, write down your weaknesses, try to improve on those weaknesses, and realize that, when you're doing business, if you're doing any business at all, how can you capitalize on that business you're doing? So if you're doing, $300,000 to $400,000, dollar deals,
Hmm.
why are you doing those deals? Maybe it's the people that you're meeting, maybe it's the areas that you're hanging out, or the leads that you're trying to call on, or whatever it may be, and then adjust that.
Right.
So, not saying, hey, drop your old friends, go find new friends, but,
Sure.
maybe you get a membership somewhere where you're going to be put in front of somebody that might have, that $1 million to spend, or that $2 million to spend, and, rub elbows with with those people instead of those people, vice versa, where you can try to, put yourself in a situation that is going to allow you to be in a deal that's going to be, what you want to be in.
Yeah. And then also being able to make sure that they should choose you over all the other agents that are vying for that business, which means obviously upping your game in every sense of the word. You better know more than the other agents about that area.
Know your inventory. We say know your inventory, know your inventory, know your inventory. It's the most important thing. You got to be able to talk, numbers and statistics with everybody. Otherwise you fall into the 25,000 other realtors that are in Palm Beach County, trying to, strike a deal.
We have, there's a realtor here in Chicago. He's the number 2 realtor. We have 44,000 in Chicago. And so I interviewed him on our show not that long ago. And I asked him, like, how'd you become so successful? And he said, for the first 5 years, you'll love this. And I'm sure it won't shock you at all. He woke up every morning, put on his suit, and he wanted to specialize in a neighborhood called River North here, which happens to be where I live. And so but he didn't know anything about River North because he didn't live here. He wasn't really that familiar with River North. So he would just get up every day. He would walk from building to building. We have a lot of apartment, high-rise buildings and mid-tier buildings. And he would just walk from building to building. He didn't know any of it. For the first 5 years, that's essentially all he did. And he said he only closed 10 sales in his first 5 years, which is not much, as you obviously, as anybody knows. And he said that's all he did. And he said he was the poorest person of all of his friends. He wasn't making any money, but he said it was the best 5 years he ever spent. Now, he said most people aren't going to be able to survive doing that, but he goes, I'm glad. And he was able to live at home with his parents for the first 5 years, so that helped. But he said it was the smartest thing he ever did, because he goes, at the end of that 5 years, there was nobody that knew River North better than me. And as a result, I got all the listings, and people knew that I knew more. So he did his homework. And obviously not all of us can spend 5 years, walking from building to building, but certainly you could spend an hour a day doing that, right?
Right.
You could spend an hour. Yeah. You could spend an hour a day learning the inventory and studying the market, because, it's like, if you expect somebody to turn over a $2 to $10 million property for you to sell, you better have a real good pitch about why they should choose you versus, and obviously you guys have perfected that. That is your bread and butter, our luxury properties, along with obviously other properties. But the fact that you can play in that space really demonstrates what your agents have, this ability to be able to have those conversations in a really intelligent way. And I'm sure most agents couldn't. And you probably don't worry about other agents because they probably just don't know as much, I'm guessing, about those types of properties.
Right. We try not to we look at the competition, but we try to just kind of always look ahead,
Sure.
not worry about what people are saying about you, and just try to always come up with something new that's going to put you ahead of the curve, and trying to find out what that is. I was listening to a podcast where, especially for people getting into the business, that, and I forget who was saying it, but he said, for people getting into the business, if you look at any other profession where you can make, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, whether that's, a doctor, that's a big time attorney, it's somebody that's, pretty well off, in the
It's a great living. Yeah.
They've had to go to school for, 4 years. Okay. And then during those 4 years, they're not making any money. If they're going to that doctorate level, they're going to school for another 3 years. So he said, treat your first 4 years in real estate as you going to school and you learning. Yeah. And if you can make any money in that first 4 years, great. We tell people, try to make some money your first quarter, but you're not going to be that superhero agent those first 4 years. You're going to be doing what that guy did, kind of pounding the ground and really learning what area you want to, really specify into where you can become that, that either luxury agent or that well-known, neighborhood agent, whatever it is. It's just time and experience. There's no secret sauce to it, but it's, time, energy, efficiency, and just, overall trying to be an expert in that field to get you to that next level.
Yeah, and the good news too is I forgot who wrote the book, but it's never crowded along the extra mile. I forgot who. I think it was Scott Peck who wrote that. But anyway, that is so true. Where if you're willing to go that extra mile, you'll find it's not that crowded with competition, right? There's
Right.
lots of other people, but they'll stop well short of that extra mile, and all of a sudden, you'll say, oh, it's pretty great over here. I'm actually an expert where most people maybe don't have that knowledge. But for anyone who's listening, who's in the South Florida area, in the Palm Beach areas, can you mention the areas you guys serve?
Yeah, so we're pretty much from northern Palm Beach County down to the Florida Keys. We have the Naples office, Jupiter Palm Beach Gardens, Boca, Delray Beach, Manalapan, Florida Keys, and Naples. So pretty much all southeast Florida, and a little bit over on the West Coast.
Well, if anyone's listening who's a buyer, a seller, a renter, an investor who is looking for an agent to work with, Sutter and Nugent is a great company that you should be considering. The best way to reach out to them, visit their website, sutterandnugent.com. We'll post a link to it, of course, in our notes. And then also, there's a lot of agents that are probably now going to be interested in learning more about your firm. Maybe they're looking to make a switch. What's the best way an agent should, or a client should, reach out if they want to work with you?
Best way is either through social media or the website.
Yeah.
You can find my cell phone on there, or just click inquiry, and it'll lead you to an email. So either way, social media is instant. We'll get it on our phone right away.
Yeah, that's great. You can find them on Facebook at Sutter and Nugent. So at Sutter and Nugent, just search for it. You'll find it. And also on Instagram, their handle is Sutter and Nugent INC. So Talbot, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. It was a nice pep talk for the end of the day. We should have done this in the morning. I would have been running out the door.
Well, I am not going to be calling for Fizzbuzz or expireds at the end of the day. But I'm going to tell all of my agents to do that, because that is a great idea. And I know our listeners got a ton of value. So before we go, we want to thank Talbot for being on the show. On behalf of the listeners, we appreciate your time. We know how busy you are. It's a big deal to give us an hour here, and we greatly appreciate it. And also on behalf of Talbot and myself, we want to thank the listeners for continuing to support our show. We're continuing to grow. We think we're the most popular podcast for realtors in the country now. We're super excited about that. So that's only because of the great guests we have like Talbot, and also for our listeners for helping us do two quick things. One, please tell a friend. Think of one other agent that could benefit from hearing this great interview with Talbot, and send them a link to our podcast. You can find us online. Easiest way is go to our website, which is keepingitrealpod.com, or find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/keepingitrealpod. We have every episode we've ever done, or just pull up any podcast app you have, type in Keeping It Real, look for the one that's real estate related. It's us. There's a few other podcasts called Keeping It Real, but you'll find ours. And tell a friend. And then also just continue to listen to these great episodes. We bring 2 to 3 new episodes a week. This was a fantastic one, and we want to thank all of us. So on behalf of Talbot and myself, I want to thank you for continuing to support our show. And Talbot, thank you so much, and congrats on all the wild success.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thanks.